Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. And we have one hell of a show for you. Going to be all revved up. We're talking about Kamala, so many different things, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
All right. We're going to get right into this. I'm going to let you know I've got Ryan on the controls. That's my son. And then I got my other son, Dennis, and he's my co-host. And I'm going to tell you that it has been a grueling week. Having to sit at home and endure the garbage that they put on television for Kamala Harris was painful. If you asked me, I recently had surgery on my mouth. If you asked me what was more painful, the surgery or the DNC, it was the DNC. Each and every night, just watching my country fall to its knees was almost enough to drive me to drink. I'm not kidding. I'm on a diet and I'm trying not to drink any alcohol. And my wife said to me, don't grab it. I'm like, I need a scotch. Don't grab it. I need a scotch. I never grabbed it. But I will tell you, last night, instead of having a scotch, I was up until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. That's why the Great American Newsletter got out late again today. In fact, my boys will tell you, all week, I've had a hard time sleeping. I'm not kidding. The other night, I never went to sleep. I was up until 5:30, and it didn't matter how much DML CBD I took. DML CBD knocks me out all the time. It's the greatest thing for sleep ever. I took it. In fact, I took a second one. Couldn't do it. Why? Why am I up at night? Maybe it's the same reason that you're up at night. It is almost inconceivable that the United States of America has found itself in a spot to where somebody like Kamala Harris, who actually had no traction at all when she tried running for president, who was losing staff members. She couldn't keep them as vice president. She cackles. She sounds like a freaking bumbling, rumbling idiot. How this woman is now the number one representative of the Democrat Party for leading the biggest, strongest, most prosperous country in the world. Kamala Harris? I looked at this woman last night speak, and a few things just raced into my mind. And I don't know why they did, but they did. She's married to Dougie, which is nauseating. But all I could think sitting there was, what did Willie Brown see in this woman? Because it's really Willie Brown. The rumor is, the storyline is that Willie Brown embraced her. They had their interludes, and that's how she got her kickstart. And I look at this woman, and I don't see anything remotely attractive. Even if she's pretty, and I don't know because I can't look that way at her. The evil inside of this woman is so enormous that it just flows out to her exterior. The ugliness in her is 10 times more uglier than Michelle Obama. And I think Michelle Obama is one of the most ugliest women I've ever seen in my life. So why is that? Why am I looking at somebody like Kamala Harris and all I can see is the devil? And here's why. Last night, Kamala Harris put on one hell of a show. Usually she's up there. She won't even talk to the press. The reason being is because she's a cackling idiot who can't put together a cognizant sentence. She'll tell you that, things like, North Korea is a country next to South Korea. Ukraine is a country next to Russia. I mean, she talks to you like an idiot because that's how her brain functions. If she's not reading off a teleprompter, if she's not stealing somebody's idea, if she's just not going down the George Soros book of how to carry out law enforcement, she's nothing. She's nothing. But last night, what I saw scared the hell out of me, at least temporarily so, until this morning I woke up and I said, no way am I going to allow her propaganda to get me down. What I saw last night was Barack Obama in a dress. She gave you nothing of substance. Her whole thing was, well, at least we know about your mother now. She gave that story in detail. Then she just flowered around how she's going to be this great defender of democracy and this great defender of our nation. And she was going to do all this and all that. Donald Trump sucks. And the thing, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I did. The crowd was excited, but it was insanely excited when she talked about other countries. Her passion led to a new high when she talked about Ukraine, when she talked about Gaza. And I said, my goodness, where's that sort of enthusiasm about our country? Why didn't she say anything about getting the homeless off the street? Why didn't she say anything about truly stopping fentanyl? Why didn't she say anything about making it so this way you can live the American dream and painting out what that American dream really is? All she did was speaking cliches and talking points, never went into any sort of nuance whatsoever. And that's because she only has one plan for America. And it's not a plan that anybody wants to buy. So she conceals it. It's a plan known as socialism, which eventually turns into communism. The scariest thing last night is that this woman lied to you each and every word that came out of her mouth, whether she was lying about Trump or lying about what she's capable of doing. We all must ask, if this is what you're going to do for the United States, although you didn't paint a plan at all, you just painted a picture, who can't do that? It's all going to be roses and sunshine. Why aren't we doing this now? You've had 3.5 years to do this. Why aren't you doing this now? Why wait until January 2025? Why not go in and talk to Joe right now? Joe's looking to build up his legacy. He wants to leave with a bang. Why not take these things, go into Joe and say, hey, let's do this now. We could do a lot of this through executive order. Why not? And I'll tell you why not. Because it's a lie. It's not going to happen. None of it's going to happen. It is all a facade to get people to vote for her. Because once she gets into office, then the real Kamala Harris plan starts to unfold. And I want to give you what that looks like. This is not based on my opinion. This is based on what was written in the New York Times yesterday. Her tax plan, although not completely finished from front to back, top to bottom, her tax plan has been revealed, at least in part. And it is the most scariest economic plan that I have ever seen in my 55 years. In fact, last night, as I sat there and I was watching this, and I was listening to this, and I was looking at the New York Times, my head started to wander off a little. Do you know what I was thinking? What country am I going to move my family to? And I'm not saying that just try to be funny or just try to emphasize a point. I literally started to look online for the options to where I can move my family with the idea that I will come back and visit a couple of months every year for friends and family. Let me give you an example. Well, actually, let me say first of what happens if indeed Kamala Harris does come president of the United States, which I do not believe will happen. But my wife disagrees with me. My wife is in uber fear because she feels as if the media, although they know the disaster that awaits us, is going to continue to sell it because they have to. They're so deep in. It's like being in business with the drug cartel. You try to get out, you're never getting out. Once you get in, you don't get out. So the media is going to keep on selling this. And the dumb people of this country, and unfortunately, we've got a lot more than we recognize, they're going to buy it. That's her concern. All of your freedoms, all the things that you cherish are going to be gone. They will be stripped from you. It will not happen on day one, And it will not happen on day 31. It's going to be a slow cook. But by year 4, you mark my word, 48 months will it take. That's what it will be for your life to be completely flipped upside down, where you at that point won't be able to leave America. You'll be stuck here. Let me give you a sense of just one thing. Freedom of speech. What's going on right now in the UK, where people are being arrested, just think about this for 1 second. There are news reports coming out from all over the world about the UK imprisoning people for up to 2, 3, and 4 years for writing derogatory statements, insulting statements about the Muslim migrants that have gone into that country and basically, from what some people say, taken it completely over. Whereas the migrants who are assaulting women, raping young girls, are getting passes because they're saying things like, I didn't know we weren't allowed to do that here. It's imploding that country. Everything's turning inside out. People are being silenced. When Kamala Harris comes into this country, one of the first things she's going to do is she's going to limit your speech. She's going to make it so that people like myself can't tell the story. Because if we tell the story, we're going to jail. She needs to silence us. And that's the best way of doing it. Make you scared. Do you want to live behind a prison cell, or you just want to live out your life and do the best you possibly can? We've got a new job in town here. And that job is to create socialism, and you're not going to get it in our way. And you will see people like Dan Bongino and Tucker Carlson and Dennis Michael Lynch and Glenn Beck, one by one, boom, 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 boom. Some will go to jail. Others will just decide to tap out. And the media will be controlled. The message will be controlled, and that's all that will happen. From there, it becomes a colossal disaster. And we're going to speak today just about money for the DML report. And then when I bring in Denny, we'll talk about other things like immigration. But based on what I have been able to read, the preliminary outline is that Kamala Harris is basically going to de-incentivize this entire country. The rich will be de-incentivized to do any sort of big investment or new innovations. They will be pushed out of this country. They're not going to stay here. They're going to go buy themselves a nice little villa somewhere in Europe or somewhere down in the Caribbean. Who knows? They're not going to stay here. They're not going to give their money away to the government. People who are upper middle class, maybe that sort of kind of rich, they're going to look for other options as well. But one thing they're not going to do anymore is they're not going to run their businesses. And then the people who work hard with the idea that if I work really hard, I'll be able to buy a home and I'll be able to save my money and I'll have a 401k and I'll be able to retire and have a couple of vacations. That's all going to get stripped from you. You are going to wind up finding yourself in a mindset that says, I need to find assets that depreciate versus appreciate. You might as well just sell your home because your home is no longer an asset. It becomes a liability. In fact, if you got yourself a nice car, you better keep it because you're going to need more items like a car or a boat that go down in value versus going up in value. And here is why. The big, huge program that she's going to want to put out is going to tax you to no end, including on what's called an unrealized gain. So let me give you 2 examples of the unrealized gain and how Kamala wants to go after it. Let's keep with the home. Let's say, for instance, that you bought a home on January 1 for $500,000. And a year later, it's now worth $525,000. It went up 5%. Fantastic. In today and yesterday's world, you don't pay any money on that. It's paper-based. Now, you may be able to borrow against that, which makes it a real number because you go into the bank and say, hey, I'd like to take an equity line. And they go in and they say, what's the house worth? And yeah, it's worth more than what I bought it. Okay, great. Kamala Harris wants to tax you on that unrealized gain because even though your house was $500,000 and now it's $525,000, it's $25,000 more than it was, even though it's just on paper. You didn't sell it. You didn't take that $25,000. You haven't benefited from it at all. She still wants to tax the $25,000. What happens if you don't have the tax, the payment? What happens? You're going to tax me on $25,000 that I didn't make? I don't even have the money. Doesn't matter. We want the money. Look at your 401k. Look at your CDs. Look at your stock portfolio, if you're lucky enough to have one. Most people in the country do. Not everybody, but most people do. Let's go back to that same example. You've got $500,000 in your 401k. You're told that you can't touch it until you retire. And even when you retire, you don't take it all, you take from it. Well, let's say, for instance, that right now I've got $500,000 in my 401k. And by the end of the year, it was $550,000. It went up by 10%. S&P goes up about 10 to 12% every year. Okay, I'm at $550,000. That $50,000, I didn't take it. I didn't use it. I didn't borrow against it. And I didn't sell any of the stocks that I had that guy brought me up to $550. It is an unrealized gain. Kamala Harris wants to tax it. What? Yeah, I want to tax it. And if you don't have the money for the tax, what happens? Now, understand this. Maybe you're somebody who hasn't been audited. Maybe you're somebody who's always got the, I got through again this year. Or maybe even you're somebody who got audited, but you were nice and clean, or at least it looked that way because the IRS just wound up sending a letter and, they just wanted to get a couple bucks from you. Those days are over. AI creates a system, if not today, very soon, where every single last tax return will be able to be calculated by an AI system. You don't believe me? Go to ChatGPT right now and say, give me a 500-word essay on how it is that the stars align on August nights versus December nights. And you are going to wind up getting a 500-word essay within a nanosecond. Perfectly written, no grammar mistakes, spelling perfect. Almost as if you wrote it from, the Ivy League. So your tax return goes in and the AI is going to calculate it spot on. It is going to be able to, based on their algorithm, tell whether or not you paid your full taxes. And it's going to be done in a second. You don't pay the tax. You don't got the money on that capital gains. Hey, I don't have any money. The value of my house went up. The 401k went up. I just don't have the money. Doesn't matter. You're going to lose your property. Or you're going to get fined so much so that eventually you're going to lose your property. You're going to have to cash in on that money. You're going to pay the taxes. You're going to pay the penalty, and you're going to have far less. She's going to start with the mega rich. She's going to go down to the rich. Then she's going to go to the upper middle class. She'll go to the middle class, and then she's going to be going after that $50,000 a year person. Nobody is safe, except for the people who are migrants and extremely poor. And you say, well, how is she going to do this? Why is she going to do this? I'll tell you how she's going to do it. She's going to do it because she's going to have the IRS as her platform, and she's going to have the DOJ as her enforcement, as the collection agency. You don't pay, you go to jail. It's that simple. There's no in-betweens. That simple. And the reason why this happens is because in order to have a socialized country, you cannot have wealth. You cannot have ownership. You cannot have incentive. You cannot have somebody like Denny saying, I'm going to work really hard because I want to live the American dream. I'm going to save my money. I'm not going to sell my stocks. I'm going to go up by 12% a year. I'm going to keep on throwing into my Roth IRA. And one of these days, not only am I going to have a retirement, but I'm going to have a little nest egg and I'm going to go buy myself a nice little house for $250,000 with a white picket fence. And me, my wife, and my 2 kids are going to live happily ever after. And one day, maybe I'll sell that house for double the amount and I'll be able to retire on it. Those days are over. They're over under Kamala Harris. Her tax plan tells me that is her plan. Corporations today get taxed at 21%. So that means that if a corporation has a tax liability profit of, let's say, $10 million, after they wrote everything off and they did everything else, they owe $10 million. If there's a $10 million profit, they owe $2.1 million. 21% of the $10 million, they get to retain the other 7.9. She wants to take that number up to 28%. That means that you're going to have a corporation that's going to lose $700,000 that they would be able to put into raises and bonuses and new equipment and new innovations Instead, they're going to put it in Kamala Harris's pocket. So what are they going to do? They're going to cut back significantly. Because on top of that, she is also going to dial down all the things that they can write down and write off to lower their tax liability. It's called an incentive. It's legal. It's not a loophole. It's legal. So your write-offs are going to be less. Your taxes are going to be more. Corporations aren't going to be able to thrive. Slowly but surely, they're all going to want to wither away. Next, she wants to take the effective tax rate, 37%. Somebody like myself pays. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to be near 40%. You tack on some of the other things she's got going on with surcharges on Medicare, it's going to be almost 45%. Now, the way my business goes, which is the way most small businesses goes, I'm called a pass-through business. So if at the end of the year, I make an extra $100,000, I don't get taxed as a corporation. That goes on to me, and I get taxed as an individual. You start taking 45% of the tax the money that I'm making, you know what happens? I close this down. I can't come to you even if I wanted to, even if I didn't get hit for the BS hate speech, the new laws that make me not be able to speak, even if they said, let the guy stay in there. I can't. I can't afford to turn the lights on. I can't afford to buy CBD, to send you the CBD. I can't buy the boxes, can't pay my sons, can't pay my vendors, can't do anything. Why would I? Why would I work like an entrepreneur 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week, running 2 businesses? Why would I do that? So this way I could just hand my money over to Kamala Harris so she could give my money to some scientists in the name of climate change and Zelensky in his battle to take on Russia, which is an impossibility. Why am I going to pay for the migrant who's going to get so much and yet my homeless vet gets so little? I'm de-incentivized. And slowly but surely, she changes freedom and the American way to a new sort of feel, a new sort of America. And that feel is that of dependency. Now I'm dependent. I need the government. I need it for my health care. I need it for my food. I need it for that monthly check I'm going to get. I'm no longer dreaming. I'm just trying to survive. I look like that puppy that you stick in a cage for way too long and where the sparkle just goes away and there's a general sadness. And I'm just hoping that maybe you'll let me out of the cage. And if you let me out of the cage, man, I hope I get something to eat and drink. Now, this may sound so friggin' wild to you, like a sci-fi. It may sound like, oh, Dennis, the sky is falling, you're exaggerating this all. I did not make this up. This is not me deciphering the words of her speech. This is me deciphering what her plan is and as published by her friends at the New York Times. This is me seeing what is taking shape around the world and realizing that eventually it all lands here. Because that's the master plan. Israel? Israel's done. Finished. She says she's going to protect Israel and protect everybody, and it's all a lie. It is 100% a lie. I go back to the home ownership for a second. Put this into the back of your mind. And then don't let it go. Make sure it stays there. Home ownership is probably the biggest dream of every person who is an American. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I mean, you get married, you have your kids, you've been there. But when you buy that first house, and I don't care what that house is, when you get the keys to it, then he knows what it feels like. He bought his first condo a year ago. There's just something about when you get the key, and it doesn't matter how great or how poor the house is, how big or small, where it is. There's just something that says to you, I made it. I made it. I'm on the first rung. That is going to be gone. We are going to be the United States of renters. Because it works against you now to have a home. You look around at what's been taking place. Look at one of the biggest, they're actually running the world as far as I'm concerned, BlackRock. One of the biggest equity plays that there are out there. Hundreds of billions of dollars under management. One day it will be trillions. Do you know what their big investment has been over the last couple of years? Buying up homes. Buying up homes. They're empty. Nobody's living in them. They're buying up towns. They're buying up big, huge plots. They're building homes. They've got their money in home builders. They've got them in everything that's real estate. Gee, why? You think they're just looking to flip it? Like your buddy, the carpenter who knows how to build a house and paint it up a little bit and buy it for $200 and sell it for $260 and just make the spread? No, they don't waste their time like that. What they're doing is they're preparing for what's to come, realizing the fact that you're not going to be able to buy a home or keep it. You're going to have to rent. And that's why they're buying up everything. The Chinese right now, the Chinese own 384,000 acres of property in the United States of America. Think about that. Why do you think that is? Because first you go to socialism and then you go to communism. When you get a country that is de-incentivized, when you get a country that's lost its soul, that's lost its spark, that looks like a little dead puppy, eventually what happens is that it becomes so weak, you take it over. And nobody tries to fight to defend it because there is nothing to defend. So yeah, this is one of the most dire, the sky is falling DML reports I've ever done. And it comes off yesterday's DML report where I basically was ready to cheerlead like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader and saying, we're going to win this game. And I still believe it. I'm just giving you the dire warning here. So I'll give you the upside to this all to make you feel a little better before we take you down feeling a little worse of some of the other things that are going on here in our beloved country. Donald Trump lost 3 points in the betting line last night. I don't follow the polls. I follow the betting lines because people are putting their money where their mouth is. He had a 6-point spread, but last night after her big rousing speech, which I will admit, she did really well. She said nothing, but man, she delivered it like Obama. Yes, we can. She got some momentum last night. Right after the speech, the betting line changed. She's only down 3 points. I haven't checked it today. I'm sure she'll either be even or be up. But the good news is the honeymoon is over. The DNC has finally come to an end, and I could get back to getting some sleep. Now Kamala Harris has no choice. There's no more distractions. She's officially it. Joe's off to the side. Nobody gives a rat's ass about him. The DNC pomp and circumstance is all finished. And now it's all eyes on Kamala. And she's basically got 70 days to try to hide away from everything and everyone, and it ain't going to happen. She's going to get fleshed and fleshed out. That's what's going to happen. Even the people on her own side are going to want some answers. Because here's the thing. Deep inside, all these media scumbags who have been lying to you and playing cover for these people, at the end of the day, there's one thing they love more than having the power of being Barack Obama and Kamala Harris's friend. They love their families. They truly do. We don't understand their love in all those kind of places. Like, I don't understand why somebody would allow their child to get a gender affirming, whatever it is, surgeries when they're 13 years old. But nonetheless, they still love their families. And at some point, somebody there at the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC is going to take a look at these numbers. They're going to sit home, just like I did with their wife, and they're going to say, we're not going to be able to survive. And suddenly, their ideology is going to turn. And they're going to say, we need some answers. We just can't we can't front this for her anymore. We need some answers. And in the same way they sort of turned on Joe, they will turn to Kamala and say, damn it, I need to know what it is. And that fake hatred that they have for Donald J. Trump may turn around. That's what I'm banking on. And if there's any reason why you should believe me, and I'll end on this and then we'll bring Denny in. I told you not more than, 2 days ago when I put that electoral map up and I told you that Trump would get Georgia. And Denny said, Dad, I don't understand how it is that you think he's getting Georgia. I mean, Georgia last time, wasn't it stolen? I mean, it's a lot like Arizona. Isn't that in play? I said, no, it's not in play anymore. You want to know why? Because Kemp Governor Kemp wants to go to a new place. He wants to be the president of the United States eventually, or if not, he wants to keep in government and become senator when his time is up as governor. He is going to coalesce. He's going to turn around. He's going to become pro-Trump because he cannot survive politically if his state is lost again, especially to fraud. And then last night, while I'm watching Fox News, who comes on? Governor Kemp. Hannity is basically kissing his ass and saying, I have personally seen everything you're doing to ensure that the state of Georgia is secure in its next election. And Kemp said, we need to reelect Trump. And then all of a sudden, Trump calls into Fox News about a half hour later and says, Kemp and I are now going to become really good friends. And so I called it right. So trust me when I tell you, there is a silver lining here. Donald J. Trump is going to win this election for as long as each and every one of us stay steadfast and promised to the fact that we realize that we have no more time left on the clock. We are on the 1 yard line. It depends on which way you want to look at it. We could either be on the 1 yard line going in for a touchdown, or we could be on our own 1 yard line. And if we don't move forward, we give the ball back to the other team. It's that simple. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to us being the biggest red wave pro-Trump message that has ever hit the United States of America. And that is that. Dennis, I want to play here 2 videos simultaneously, one after the next, Ryan, if you could get it lined up. We've got Kamala Harris saying, we're not going back, we're not going back, we're not going back. She lays out all these things that Donald Trump does so poorly. And then she talks about amnesty. I think it's very important, not only to give my voice a little rest because I went very long, I think it's very important to allow people to hear who didn't watch last night what it is she's saying about Trump and what is she saying about the people who have no right to be in this country. And then I want to get your take. Go.
But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back. And we are charting a new way forward. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
You know, when you see or hear a comment like that, I think it's going to be great when we compare it to what Trump had said at the border. But just commenting on basically, you know, the entirety of that speech. It's funny how you had mentioned it earlier when I had watched clips last night because I couldn't stomach through the entire speech. I know some of our Team DML members felt that way too. Yeah. It just felt like she was trying to channel her biggest Barack Obama impression that she could possibly try to manage. I think like she was trying to get the 2008 magic that he, you know, tried to capture back then.
She got it, Dennis.
She got it.
I'm going to give her credit.
But the thing is, when you really dissect it, right? It's like going to that fancy restaurant that everyone's telling you about. It's like, oh, you got to get this meal. It's fantastic. It's great. It's got all the, you know, it's meaty. It's great. Mm-hmm. You get there and it's a TV dinner and it's just a complete false promise. I mean, she gives no detail, no descriptions, no specified policy plan. It's just little clicky sound bites of why Trump is the bad guy and I'm going to fix everything. Well, where has that been for the last 4 years? And, you know, I'm this independent, confident woman that could really take the country in a new direction. Although, as you laid out, that direction is horrifying. So when you hear kind of what her whole, I guess, sphere in terms of how she views illegal immigration, and then you get Trump, who, is down at the border and he's lining out exactly how he's going to handle it from day one. I think it's just a great indicator that under her, this country is going to continue to be flooded. Whereas Donald Trump, day one, I think you're going to finally see that border completely shaping up.
So I know I'm going very deep in my explanations, but I get feedback from people who say, I appreciate that. So I'm going to go a little deep here on something that you just said. So the high-level analysis on illegal immigration has always been the Republicans want cheap labor and the Democrats want cheap votes. I think that has been a misleading sort of concept, albeit true, because we've left out another sector. Whereas the Republicans say they want the cheap labor, so too, by the way, do the liberals. They own businesses.
Of course.
And the liberals want the votes. The socialists want the soldiers. And that's where we forgot. That's where nobody's ever looked. So think about this. I just told you that I am now going to become de-incentivized. So too shall you. So too shall Ryan. So too will anybody with any sort of career or success. Why am I going to go out and work and do this? So if you don't have people who are going to go out and work, everything in the country collapses, even for the king and the queens. So you need to have the peasants. Now, if you're somebody who's from El Salvador, or you're from Mexico, or you're from Brazil, or you're from Iraq, and you have been living basically on 20 cents a day, and you've been living in the dirt and squalor, things like only the people who live in tents in this country know what we're talking about. You come to the United States of America, and suddenly you're in a total upgrade. I mean, even if you're sleeping in the street in San Francisco, it's an upgrade from sleeping in the dirt in El Salvador. So to that extent, what they're doing is, and we have another little thing we'll play here in a couple of seconds that will prove it. What they're doing is they're creating this second wave of an American, realizing the fact that slowly but surely, the guy like you, the guy like me, is going to be eviscerated. And it's not just the white guy. They're starting with the white guys. But, if you look at how many black guys and black women are actually now on video, whether it's social media with a little selfie or whether it's Don Lemon going up and asking people, on a boardwalk, the black people are sitting there and saying, I've had enough of this crap. They're giving us away to the other team, the illegal alien team. So slowly but surely what they're doing is they're pushing out and pushing away and pushing down the strength of the general American and creating the new American who is dependent on the nation and isn't going to think anything different because they haven't known anything different, Dennis. They came from that environment. Now they've still got that environment, but instead of wondering where their next meal is, they're actually living on 3 squares a day and saying, this isn't so bad. I'm making some pretty good bucks. I'm never going to be Bill Gates, but I never thought I was going to be Bill Gates. I was just lucky to be alive. And here I am. I'll cut the lawn. I'll do the sheetrock. I'll fill the cart with the food. And that's how it winds up working.
I'll get to the de-incentivizing in a second, but to your earlier point, it's more than just even the black Americans. I think in different facets, you'll see how, diverse Americans, if we want to use it, that different ethnic Americans will get targeted. We have seen white people get ostracized from certain DEI initiatives. Mm-hmm. I'd say on the scholastic level, that is extended to Asians. I think Apple just had an opening for a summer camp of sorts, and they they didn't want white participants, white males, or Asian males. Then you're going to have it with even Hispanic Americans. I mean, Florida's got a heavy Cuban population, especially Cubans who have come over legally because they recognized what their country fell into. And now they're seeing that literally unfold in this new country they came to legally, plus those that are doing it the wrong way. They're witnessing how they had to go through the processes, and then these ones are just getting the handouts. So they're pissed off. So in different ways, I think you're going to get that targeting. And with the de-incentivizing, I think what's very sad is you're saying that about the newcomer. Sorry, she just uses it so much. Those coming over illegally, how this is what they've known, but now that they're coming over, sleeping on the streets of San Francisco is the new plus for them. You're going to see that generationally. I mean, you at your age, and even those older than you, have seen what prosperity can look like. Mm-hmm. as we continue on to Gen Z, then Gen Alpha, if what she is able to create is the new normal, that's what people being born here are only going to ever know, that it's always working for the government because you're dependent on the government and there is no room for the success of the American dream. I mean, when you look at it, they've kind of diluted history to make it seem like the American dream has been dead or far gone for a while.
Hey, Ryan, you could just put that on a wide. Your mother's knocking on the door. You won't get that on Hannity. So yeah, my wife, we're actually recording the wine and talk after we're done with this show here. So my wife is here. We're running late here. So that's why Ryan's going to go. But you bring up, oh man, Dennis, we can have this conversation for 3 hours.
Right.
The illegal alien coming in the numbers that they've come in is calling back. They're calling home. You got to see, people don't understand the process because it's never explained. What winds up happening is that the illegal alien comes. There's always that one person in the family that's the adventurer, that takes the risk, that gets the support of the whole family, 20 people coming and collecting and giving them the money. They usually get the brave soul, the one who will be able to withstand the beatings of the cartel and be able to take that long journey. This is the person who is, in the same way that the explorers of the United States wound up going out to the West Coast because they had the thoughts of gold, right? That energy, that mojo, that determination that brought us to the West Coast. That's the person who becomes the explorer of, let's say, the Lopez family. And then Manny gets there and he sees what it's like. And he calls back to home and says, you can all do it. You can all do it. We can all make it. And this is why when you have the Biden-Harris administration lowering the threshold to get over that Rio, to get over that fence, to get under that tunnel, when they lower the threshold and make it easier, that whole process becomes a lot more inviting for those who are weaker.
Right.
And now when you get them here, truth be told, you can't have them live on the street because that will, like any homeless person, de-incentivize them. You and I made a whole film on homelessness. What were we told by the experts? It starts off with some chronic thing that happens. Somebody loses a family member. They got no money. All of a sudden they're broke, medical bill, whatever it may be. They're sleeping in the car for a couple of days. After that, they go to a homeless shelter. You can only stay there for 30 days. After that, before you know it, you're sitting on a cardboard box. Before that, you're sleeping in a tent. And then what happens is slowly but surely, the mindset goes in the slide where the thought of maybe I can get out of this goes to I'm never going to get out of this, goes to I'm going to adapt to this. And this is why people can never understand. How can we let our veterans and how can we let our American citizens sit on the street and not, take care of them when we're giving hotels and everything else to illegals? And the reason being is because the illegals is the next generation. Out with the old, in with the new. We've got to make that phone call, and this is the big crux of what I'm talking about, so understand how this works. We've got to make the phone call back home that you can come to. We got to make it so this way they got enough money to where they can send it home through the banks who are making a fortune in this country, trillions of dollars over decades of just taxing, if you want to call it taxing, getting their VIG, if you will, their fees on that money that's going internationally. And so this system has been built in such a way to where you can bring these people in a machine. And that's where it's become. So when you hear the government telling you that there's 8 million, 11 million, 20 million people, they know it's not. They know it's 50 million. But if it's the same reason they don't tell you that there's UFOs. They don't want to scare the bejesus out of you, and they don't want to get you pissed off. They know there's 50 million people in here, and they're almost to the point of where they'll have enough to where they say we could lose every single American worker. We don't need them. And look at the labor statistics right now. All new jobs are going to the foreign born. Look at the 818,000 jobs that they just said, hey, we screwed this up. You didn't screw it up. It went to illegal aliens. That's why it looks like it's screwed up.
Right. And just to touch on something where you just said with the homelessness, that's another depressing consequence of what Biden has allowed with illegal immigration. I mean, when we had done United States Tents, that was probably about 5 or 6 years back. And the point of those homeless shelters was to get those that fell on hard times, Americans, back on their feet and back to being contributors to society. Now, in those years, in that span under Joe Biden presidency, I mean, we read reports all the time that those homeless shelters have been converted to migrant shelters. So if you're someone who hit the hard times, you're like, I'm ready to get my life together, this might be my chance. You show up to the homeless shelter and like, oh, by the way, we can't even give you a bed for 30 days, let alone 3, because we just had, an entire squadron of Venezuelan, migrants come in, and we give them the beds because also we get government incentives for doing so. So now they're out on the streets with no bed to at least try to get them up on the standpoint. So it's crazy to think that illegal immigration, especially the way it's been abused, can really almost hit every standpoint of life in some kind of way.
And so let's play a video. Ryan, do you have it queued up? Can we play the video from Fox News? All right, so we have a video here. We're going to let Fox News describe this program versus Dennis and I describe this program about what is happening here for giving grants to illegal aliens in, I think, what is it, state of Oregon?
Oregon.
All right, play it.
A taxpayer-funded group is offering $30,000 to new home buyers. Lauren, you cannot apply if you're an American citizen. What's with that?
Why would an American citizen apply for a taxpayer-funded program to get $30,000 for a new home? I mean, it's wild. The group is called Hacienda Community Development Corporation. They offer payment assistance in Oregon to DACA recipients, asylees, green card holders, basically any non-U.S. citizen. This is state-sponsored discrimination, Stuart. That's what it is. I mean, it's crazy. That's their goal. They want to open up housing and the American dream to non-U.S. citizens.
Okay, I guess that's the reason why that's why we have an open border, because eventually these folks will vote and vote Democrat because they're the people who let them in. That's what this is about.
Part of me wants to say crazy things happen in Oregon, but I think this will go far beyond Oregon. There is a critical shortage of houses across the United States, particularly in Oregon, and then they're giving $30K to non-taxpayers.
Yeah, which will raise the price of houses.
For everybody else.
Pathetic. All right, Lauren, thank you very much indeed.
Dennis, before we talk about this for a second, I want to make an appeal to the people who are listening. So there are, I don't know what we got here, over 1,000 easy on Rumble. And then, of course, anywhere else that we are. There are multiple ways that you can take today's show. And at the risk of sounding like a salesperson, let me start off by saying I make no money on this show. I'm not selling anything. I'm not asking for anything. There's no big advertisements, right? I didn't tell you to go buy a pillow or anything like that. Last night, after I watched that program and I saw my wife's reaction, and I sat there and I thought about it, and I thought about it this morning, and I wrote the Great American Newsletter this morning. Again, another vehicle that has no advertisements on it. I said, man, the DNC BS is over. We've got ourselves 70 days to basically make sure that every American is informed. I urge you that this show is one of those shows that if you put somebody down in a seat and you say, you know what, we're just going to watch this. Do me a favor. Even if you said to them, I'll buy you lunch, just watch it. There's so many different ways to watch this. This video will stay on Rumble. It will be on our X account, which is x.com/trustdml. It's on my Facebook. I'll put it on my Facebook, which is facebook.com/DML News App. You can download the DML News app. It will be on the podcast tab, which is completely for free. And of course, people on Team DML. And then from the audio standpoint, they want to listen to the audio. We've got the audio player. You can get this on Apple Podcasts. You get it on Spotify. You get it on iHeart. It's all over the place. We'll actually even put this up to YouTube if they don't take it down. Because people need to really understand what we're talking about here without any exaggeration. Now, you look at something like, we're going to give you $30,000 so you can buy a house. You illegal alien. You have no right to be here, but we're going to let you own a home. Now, the craziness of this, Dennis, the craziness of this is that the Democrats will always stay in power because the illegal aliens are misled into believing these people want us, these people love us, these people appreciate us. Those other people on the Republican Party like Trump, they are racists, and it is the furthest thing from the truth. Steve Cortez, used to be somebody who worked in the Trump campaign. Can you explain the video that we have right now that's going to play for 3 minutes in its entirety because it's that damn proof-worthy?
Right. So Cortez has a Venezuelan illegal immigrant standing next to him. I believe his name is Edwin. And Cortez basically does kind of a little bit of a trick here. His pitch is that he would like to bring the illegal immigrant into the DNC, into the convention. But Edwin does not have a ticket, let alone any documentation or ID to showcase his admission into the convention. So he tries going to a guard standpoint to get him in. Then he tries going into the actual convention to get him in. And I think one more time with some guards. And without giving too much away, the basis here is that if we can defend the DNC so well, why can't we just defend our border so well?
Right. So for people listening, Steve Cortez has this illegal alien and he's taking him around the entire DC to try to get him in.
Yeah.
Okay. Play it.
At United Center, the Democrats, of course, want open borders and want an endless stream of illegal migrants pouring into the United States. This is my new acquaintance, Edwin. Say hello.
My name's Edwin. Nice to
All right, Edwin is from Venezuela. And we're going to take Edwin into the DNC so that he can meet the Democrats who want open borders. He should meet his new friends, hear the speakers, and learn about the Democratic Party. So, Edwin, let's head in, shall we?
Excelente.
This is Edwin from Venezuela, migrant, invited in by the Democratic Party. He'd like to come into the Democratic Convention.
You have to get your credentials. Yep, you have to go to Jackson.
Yep. Wait, you mean he needs credentials and permission to come in?
Yes.
To get past the wall?
Yes.
Oh, it's like a border wall in a way, huh?
Yeah. You have to have ID, credentials. He
can come to the United States?
No.
Not to come to the United States. Okay, but to come to the Democratic Convention. Okay. You believe in security. You believe in securing a boundary. Edwin can't come in.
Without credentials.
That's all I know. I commend you on guarding this border. You're doing it very effectively, folks. Good morning. We would like to get some credentials for Edwin. Come on, Edwin. Edwin is from Venezuela. So we tried to get Edwin into the convention. He's a migrant from Venezuela. No organization, just American. And he's a migrant from Venezuela. Wanted to get to the convention. We figured that they would love to have a migrant from Venezuela come in. They said we need credentials, so we're here to get the credentials. Okay.
Has anyone filled out an application for him?
So you have to. There's a process in the application. We didn't have that at the border.
Okay. I have my own personal beliefs on this, but right now I'm so I'm not speaking to the camera.
Just to be clear, we have been ejected from the DNC credentialing office because we're not permitted to be here. We don't have permission. We didn't go through the application process. It seems like.
All right, we'll kill it there because it's a lot of the same after that, Dennis. So basically, the point is this: the DNC doesn't want the illegal aliens in. They don't have IDs. They haven't been vetted, and no, we don't want you. So they'll let them into the country, but you can't go into the DNC. And it was a clever, I mean, you sent that to me, and I thought it was very, and you said, this is so clever. And it is, it's clever. It's Cortez really calling out the Democrats for who they are. Now, again, I want to sort of paint another picture here, the opposite side of this. Remember, Kamala Harris hasn't been elected. Donald J. Trump is in this race, and this is where the thoroughbred turns it on. This is like a good horse race where it's like neck and neck and neck and neck and neck, and then all of a sudden, boom. So it's Trump's chance right here to pull away. I want to give the contrasting sort of viewpoint of what we have Trump versus Kamala. Trump was at the border yesterday. In fact, he was with Sheriff Mark Daniels, who is a friend of mine, has been in my films. We've been down there. You've met him. Brian hasn't met him. Ashley met him. In fact, I texted him yesterday. I said, hey, great job. He said, thank you so much. When are you coming back down? Trump was with him yesterday, and Trump basically got up. He had the families of people who have been killed by illegal aliens, and he got up and he said, here's what I'm going to do when I'm president of the United States with the illegal alien population. Can you give people sort of a synopsis of what it is? We had this on the Great American Newsletter. By the way, you could go to greatamericannewsletter.com to sign up free, or DennisMichaelLynch.com for free. It's both the same thing, to get our newsletter every single morning, completely free, ad-free.
Say today's newsletter was so good. I hope you're okay with it being verbatim. It's only 2 little paragraphs here, but Trump made a bold commitment on Thursday to impose severe punishments, including the death penalty, on illegal immigrants who commit horrific crimes. This was in Cochise County, and Trump had outlined his plan to crack down on the illegal immigrants by doing the following. He vowed to enforce a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence for those convicted of human smuggling, a life sentence for anyone guilty of child trafficking, and the death penalty for those involved in sex trafficking of women and children. Trump didn't stop there. He also proposed capital punishment for major drug dealers and traffickers, emphasizing the need for swift justice. He made it clear that anyone convicted of killing law enforcement officials, whether police, sheriffs, border patrol agents, or ICE officers, would face the death penalty with an expedited trial process.
That's what we need. See, look, go back again. I want to just boil this down to human nature, right? We just talked about this over the weekend as a family. You were hysterical in telling this. I'm out making my illegal immigration movies, right? I'm out making my border films, and you're still in high school. And you're telling the stories, and I didn't even know this, of because our old house where we used to live in New York, we had a main house, a really small one, and then we had a really small cottage outside. So I'm away in Arizona, I'm away in Texas for 2 weeks, and I'm a pretty hard-nosed kind of dad, right? You're not going to get out of line. And when I'm gone and it's snowy in New York, your mother's in the house. She ain't going to go out to the cottage. You're telling her you're just out there with your friends. And meanwhile, what are you having?
Some beers.
Some beer. Yeah.
Some beers.
You're having parties.
Yeah, we were having, there were parties.
Okay. So you take mom, who is going at things lackadaisically, and then you take dad, who goes at things like, let's call it the Gestapo when it comes to this, and you were telling the story about how it is I caught you. How did I catch you that I found out you were having parties at my house?
One singular bottle cap. Everything else was cleaned and put away and placed back in order, and all it took was one bottle cap that I missed for you to detect.
That you missed, but that I cared and I had the will to find. That's the key. So Donald J. Trump is not going to let these illegal aliens take advantage of him. And in the same way that you would never dare hold a party, let alone have beers in my cottage when I'm there, unless you snuck it and I didn't know, you're always going to get that one random illegal alien to go through because I see you smirking. But honestly, you're not going to wind up having the same kind of parties that you did at your house when I'm out, doing my thing because I'm missing and I'm not showing. That's the point. If you have somebody like Trump in place who is going to send a message like this, we don't even have to ever put anybody to death. It's not going to happen because he's going to de-incentivize those people from coming. And if you don't believe it's true, let me give you a statistic that supports exactly what I'm saying right now. If you got a guy who's going to say, no, you're not going to party on my backyard. No, you're not going to have beers when you're not supposed to have beers. And you're certainly not going to come across my border because I'm the main guy and you're going to pay a dear price. Well, Donald J. Trump, without signing a law, without changing a bill, without having an executive order, nothing. When he was running for president, the first go round in 2015, 2016, he said things like this, like we just told you what he said. And what happened? The illegal aliens stopped coming. He had the lowest ever that I've had in my life coming across the border in the month of April, only months after he took office. It was down to about 15 to 20,000 apprehensions. Why? Because of the way he spoke. And he's speaking that way right now. So you know what the message is out? The message is out. If Trump gets in here, this party's over. You will watch illegal immigration in this country plummet. The problem we have, Dennis, is that we've got to get this man over the goal line without somebody trying to kill him first. Yesterday, what's the story here on another guy looking to kill Donald J. Trump?
This was also in Arizona. Yeah, so they apprehended 66-year-old Ronald Lee Sivrid, who is accused of threatening to kill Trump ahead of a planned campaign event in Arizona. The Cochise County Sheriff's Office confirmed that Sivrid was taken into custody without incident around 2:30 p.m. local time. he had been making threatening posts on social media targeting Trump over a 2-day period, raising alarm and prompting the manhunt. In addition to these threats, Sivert has a criminal history with outstanding warrants from Wisconsin for DUI and failure to appear for the DUI, as well as charges in Graham County, Arizona for hit and run and felony failure to register as a sex offender. So not a good guy.
No, not a good guy at all. So, and then what we just learned this week, I'm so happy the DNC is over so we could start looking at other topics again. I mean, this week, and it's still ongoing right now, that Crooks, the guy who tried to take Trump out in Pennsylvania, turns out to be, he's got 3 different encrypted accounts in 3 different countries. And so, now we're hearing that he didn't work alone. Yeah, I could have told you that on the day it happened. So they're trying to position it as if he was working with a foreign nation. I don't agree with it at all. Let me paint this for you in 2 different kind of strokes. And I'll go quick because I know we're a little bit over our time frame here. So stroke number 1, if indeed I am correct in fearing that this was an inside job, what you do is you put out dummy accounts. You put these dummy encrypted accounts in these different countries to make it look like he was working with a foreign foe. That's number 1. Number 2 opportunity is that he was indeed working with a foreign foe. And if he was indeed working with Iran, which is one of the people that they're saying, let's not forget that the U.S. government has known that there has been a hit on Trump's head and on Pompeo's head for many, many years, going all the way back to this to the first term that Trump served. That would mean that the Secret Service, the CIA, and the U.S. government, maybe the NSA as well, knew that there was a credible threat from Iran to try to take out Trump. And even though they knew that existed, they still played easy with Trump in rejecting some of the extra security measures that he had asked for, rejecting putting people in place like they should have put in place. And it says to you, even if they weren't involved in it, in that stage 1 that I told you, with that scenario 1, number 2 is they were turning a blind eye to it, which is just as guilty and bad, if you ask me.
Well, I think when you just kind of look in the scope of it, the fact that it's taking this long, I mean, it happened July 13th, that it's taking this long to get actual concrete answers, and we're getting those bogus responses that, it's Iran behind it, I think is just a big reflection of how either corrupt or incompetent the government has become. And coincidentally,
or dangerous.
But, coincidentally incompetent because it happens to be Trump. If this was Kamala or Tim Walz, I mean, we just saw that video of Tim Walz's security detail. They look like, the freaking Olympian gods. Like,
Yeah.
he's got hard hitters, and yet, Trump got the backups of the backups. So, it's a little questionable.
Right. He got the PTA. So last thing, and then we got to say goodbye. By the time that some people will get this will already be moot. It'll be a moot point. But RFK Jr. is expected in the next couple hours to drop out of the race in Arizona. Mm-hmm. He is also expected to endorse Trump in exchange, I would imagine, for some kind of cabinet spot if he gets in there. This would be a huge plus for Trump because RFK does have a pretty strong following. And if the people who like RFK believe that he's going to be able to make an impact in the government, they're going to support Trump. And that's going to be a big wave that's going to go over. So that's also going to hurt Kamala as well. I suspect that's going to be what happens today.
Oh, that was going to be my question regarding this endorsement. Do you think it's ultimately beneficial or maybe a little tough, because the argument can be made, he was taking votes away from Kamala, but now if his name is not on any ballots, that it's just going to become, a Kamala versus Trump situation purely.
No, not at all. I look, at the end of the day, you have to remember RFK is by and large a Democrat. He's got Democrat tendencies, and he is what I think independent when it comes to certain things, especially with the COVID stuff and the vaccines. He is going to be at this point an opportunist. You cannot dilute human behavior. Human behavior right here for RFK. Look at it. Most of his family has abandoned him. They don't want anything to do with him, right? He's older, right? He doesn't have a whole lot of opportunities left in his lifetime. He wanted to make an impact politically. He's looking around. He's got nowhere else to go. So he's got to use his leverage, which is his fan base, his supporter base. And so he's going to give it to Trump in exchange for a position, and he's going to work like crazy to get Trump in there. So the people who listen to him, he's going to start to change his message strongly to be pro-Trump, pro-Trump, pro-Trump. and anti-Kamala, anti-Kamala, anti-Kamala. So anybody who would say, I can't vote for Trump, that's why I'm voting for RFK, is now suddenly going to be lured into the Trump camp. Believe me, I've seen this before. It happened in 2016 when people were for Jeb and they were for Marco and they were for Cruz and they were for whoever they were. I can't vote for Trump. I can't vote for Trump. And now these are some of the most staunch Trump supporters there are today. Okay, so trust me when I tell you, you can convert people. And I think having the two of them, and I think having RFK on stage talking specifics, can't let him get into some of the flowery stuff because that will start to scare people on our side and make them not show up. So it's got to be done very, very surgically. And I think RFK will play completely to Trump's beat because otherwise he knows Trump will fucking pull him down right off the stage and you're done. So I think it is a positive for us in a huge way. And it might actually indicate lights out for Kamala because it's the perfect storm now. And we have to end on this. Kamala is being put out right now to the front and center. She can't hide anymore. Her plans are disastrous. She doesn't have the teleprompter anymore. She's got to explain everything I did for 40 minutes in this program at the beginning today. It's going to be horrifying. Last night I watched Fox News. Hannity is challenging one of her surrogates, and he's saying about the whole thing that I just brought up. She couldn't answer it. She couldn't answer it. It was a deer in headlight. She couldn't answer it. And unfortunately, he went to commercial or something else like that. I was like, wait, no, you had her on the ropes. Why'd you stop punching? So now if we have people who keep on punching, we're good. Now we get RFK. We get that whole crew of people coming over. We're good. And now Trump, look, I know Trump sometimes is erratic in his messaging. He goes into these tangents that people wish he didn't, and it turns people off. It's meaningless. It's not how you start the race. It's not how you run in the middle. It's how you finish. And he's going to smell the prize and all that little stuff with the ego where it takes him into these other places. Trump is going to turn it on like a madman. You watch him when he has that debate with her. He's going to destroy her. She's going to be freaking minced meat, and he's going to take it all the way to the White House. We're going to win this thing. This is just going to be a bad nightmare that we're going to be pissed off we spent so many hours talking about, but at the same time appreciate, because I think all of us have gotten a little tired and lazy, and we have forgotten what freedom is like. Freedom is not for free. You need to fight for it. So now we're back in the fight. We understand what sometimes you got to understand what you're losing in order to keep it. And I think everybody's starting to get a taste for that. And you're going to watch the American people and people like us right now just rise like a phoenix and make sure that we keep our country and keep our lives and the American dream alive. That being said, thank you, Ryan, for all the clips today. Thank you for watching us. Please share this. Please tell everybody about it. Put this in front of people so this way they watch it. Denny, great job today. And I will say a thank you to all, including the Almighty, for giving us the ability to sit here and talk freely and just have the breath and the life to do it. So may he bless you, your family, the United States of America, and Donald J. Trump.
And today's teamed email blessing goes to Judith Mano.
Judith, enjoy it. Talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DMail News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and teamed email.